Hello, welcome to St. Louis Classical Community, brought to you by St. Louis Strings. I'm your host, David Ackerman. With me here today is our co-host.
Hi, I'm Joe Bean, and we are very glad to have Bill Bauer. So,
Welcome.
Thanks.
Bill is the music director of the Confluence Chamber Orchestra, which is an ensemble I only found out about 6 months ago from Joe, I think.
I have been watching from afar for quite a while, and I have been recommending it to clients, and I believe several of them have taken you up on it. And
can I give you a thumbnail history of the group?
yeah, absolutely.
Please.
So it was
do.
founded in 2004 by John San Ambrosio, the principal cellist of the St. Louis Symphony, who ran it for a year. And then he was in the midst of transferring to retirement. And he started an arts colony in Colorado. And he went away the summer of 2005 to his arts colony. And I was called in to be his substitute for the summer. And at that point, the group was organized through Oasis, which is a senior enrichment thing that was run by BJC. So I came into this room with 8 people, and we had 1 viola and I forget 2 cellos, and everybody else was a violin. And it was intended to be basically a recreational ensemble and for enrichment. And over the course of the summer, I challenged them, and they did a little bit more than they were expecting to do, and they really liked it. So John went away and didn't come back. So, and I don't mean that in any bad way. He just like, I'm in Colorado now, this is great. And so the parent organization turned to me to take it over. So I did. Worked with them through them for a couple of years. The ensemble got larger, basically through word of mouth. We concentrated at that time on senior citizen amateurs. And just like the whole senior citizen community, you have people who were like lifelong music teachers, retired symphony players, people who studied when they were teenagers and then put their instruments away for 50 years until they were in retirement and took their instruments back up. So that was our thing. I remember the first time that we started a piece and got to the end all together was a huge achievement. Like everybody was like, "Yay, we did it!" So our expectations were not really high. It was still, it was more than just recreation, but they themselves grew the whole thing. More people came to the concerts. People saw people doing these kind of things. And they decided to separate from the Oasis mechanism, at which point they went nonprofit, and we grew from that early stage to an orchestra of some 36 pieces. We have basically enough people to staff a symphony string section, and we have moments where our sound sounds like a symphony string section. So yeah, and then it functions basically as a co-op orchestra, in that everybody, where there's a need, somebody arises to take a job. It's not really hierarchical. It kind of grew organically, and it's a really wonderful community of people. And now it has almost nothing to do with senior citizens. We have a significant faction that are senior citizens, but our youngest person is 16, our oldest person is, I think, 83.
Wow.
But we're really concentrated in that 30-something, 40-something people who don't, they're not performing professionally, even though some of them are kind of at a semi-professional level. And we do string orchestra, or a string orchestra, but we service the entire musical opus. So everything that we do has to be arranged. And I use other arrangements when I can, but mostly I wind up arranging things, making them into things that our string orchestra can do.
Okay.
That's the background.
Well, and honestly, that I did not know that.
Right.
That's absolutely fascinating. I mean,
It is.
this orchestra.
I won't call it an accidental orchestra. It certainly is an organic orchestra.
Yes.
And it probably, the success of it has to do with it met a need that was in the community.
Right. Well, when the players come into the store, I feel that passion, which is, I think, one of the reasons why, even though I had been in the orchestra, hadn't played in the orchestra, I knew to recommend it to folks, because yeah, that, you know, I didn't know the backstory, but I could feel that that care from everybody who plays in this
Our
orchestra.
folks are
that comes in the
passionate.
store.
They are passionate about it. For one, they come in and, well, we're a non-auditioned orchestra. Our procedure is you fill out a little application telling us about yourself and what your experience is, and we invite you to come in to sit in for 2 or 3 rehearsals. So you can see what we are, and we can see what you are, and see how people all relate to each other. For the most part, we've gone along. For some people, they come and it's like, well, this is not what I was expecting for myself, or this is too hard. But for the most part, people get a feel for it, and the people around them are very welcoming. It is a really wonderful, loving, welcoming group, which is unlike, I'm a professional ex-symphony player, and I know about, you show up and you do your gig and it's like, hey, it was nice talking to you, and I'll see you in 3 months when we come back for the next one, kind of thing. This is not that. This is a community of people. And they're really proud of the work that they do. They're proud of the relationships that they've built one to one another, and that's different. I'm not saying other performing arts organizations don't have that, but this one's really at the forefront.
Right, and it definitely has it. So, and I love the fact that you're able to put out the music. So, you know, and now that I've been able to hear this group a couple of times, it does not sound like a non-audition group.
That's a big compliment. That's a wonderful compliment. I'll take that back to them.
And the fact that everything is you know, so welcoming to players, I think that's one of the biggest fears that I see. You know, I meet people all the time that want to pick up the violin or the cello or the viola or whatnot, and as an adult, or, you know, as a young adult, and you know, they feel like they're behind because they feel like they should have started when they were 4.
Sure.
And, you know, then they say, well, I might be able to play in my living room, but I'll never be able to play in an orchestra. And I keep thinking to myself, well, there's an orchestra here that will absolutely help you with that.
Yes.
And
occasionally we have somebody knock on the door and they just like, this is more than I bargained for, or this isn't the level that I wanted to work at. So that, and I don't say this in a bad way, but we're also kind of like the hop on, hop off buses. So you can come in and you can do a concert cycle with us. It's like, oh, now I'm going to Italy, so I'll see you guys later, and I'll check back with you in the spring, and that's okay. We work on a project for project, session to session. We have 3 sessions. We have fall, winter, spring, and then we have a shortened summer session. They all result in individual concerts. In the spring session is a little longer, and so we often wind up doing 2 concert projects, depending on what it is, and we collaborate a lot with different institutions. So if we have a collaboration that's on the books, and say, for example, there's a concert opportunity in early March, then we'll go ahead and program to that, and then we'll start the next session of music for a late spring concert that fits in with something else. So,
which brings up the next thing, the thing that I'm really fascinated about. You've got 2 concerts coming up. The first one is very shortly in March, on this Sunday. Is that correct?
and next a week from today, yes.
And the second one is April the
27th and 8th, I think.
at 3:30 p.m. Does that sound right?
I think that's right, at the Missouri History Museum.
And that's going to be music from the World's Fair?
Well, we were asked, we've collaborated, we've had the good fortune to collaborate with the History Museum, the Art Museum, the St. Louis Public Library, various institutions, when they want to have a concert that enhances some theme of a presentation that they're putting on. Often it's like an art exhibit. In this case, it's the opening weekend of the reimagined 1904 World's Fair exhibit at the History Museum. That closed two years ago. So they could like reimagine it and reconstruct it, and it's going to be quite different. My understanding is there's going to be a huge model of the fair that you can like walk through, like miniature, but it's a big model. So don't quote me on that, but that's one of my understandings. So we wanted to, and there's lots of research that's come out as a result of the 2004 centenary of the fair. But there are a lot of scholars. The programs from all the daily programs that had everything that was going on from day to day are preserved, and we have a group in our orchestra that are sleuths. I won't mention them by name, but they know who they are. And they've helped us. A team of like about 8 of us have been working on this, and we now know that we've got some statistics. The Star Spangled Banner was not yet the national anthem. That happened in 1931. John Philip Sousa was a champion of the Star Spangled Banner, and he was putting it in front of the public every chance he could because he wanted to say this should be our national anthem. His band was hired to perform at the fair. They were contracted for 3 weeks. They got extended to 5. They were the most expensive organization at the fair. I think they got $5,000 a week, which I don't know what in today's dollars, but it was very significant back then.
Well, I would very much appreciate $5,000.
Very significant back then. The Star Spangled Banner was the second most performed piece at the fair. The most performed composer was Wagner. If you think about Germanic kind of city, 1904, you've got a lot of the classics that everybody appreciated were Germanic culture. So there's lots and lots of vodka. Vodka. Leave that in. There's lots and lots of Wagner. So my point is, we know where all the venues were in the fair. I want to say park, but it's the fair. There's a wonderful publication that has an overlay of this is where everything was, and this is on top of what it looks like today. So you can see that the Pike was not where I thought it was at all. The Pike is down in that area, in front of the History Museum main entrance. That was all the big stretch of the Pike.
Oh, so it was up on Lindell.
It was on Lindell, where all the
okay.
fancy houses, all the trashy Midway kind of things were there on Lindell. Not that there was trashy, but that it was not the high art.
The Tyrolean Alps, I think, was...
Tyrolean Alps was the highest of the high on the Pike.
Right.
And it was probably the fanciest musical venue.
Oh, was it?
It was. That's where
All right.
the best orchestra was stationed in the whole thing. And then there were these other machinery gardens, St. Louis Plaza. These were all, that was sort of a parade ground, but they were open air concerts. So what we're doing, we made a plot, and we chose a route through this fair, starting at where you got off the trolley car. Ding, ding, ding. You went through what is now that main building where Jefferson sits. He didn't sit there then.
Well, the building wasn't there at that time.
That's right, but that was the entrance. And then it takes you all around through all the different musical venues, one of which was the Ferris wheel.
Okay.
There was a 30-piece band that played on the Ferris wheel as you rode around.
Oh, were they on the wheel?
They were on the wheel.
I'll be darned.
Yes. So that's kind of fascinating. But those things, they were full-size railroad cars. So that were, yeah, it had to be amazing. I wish I could go back for one day.
Right.
But we take us through the whole, the high and the low of the music because the French Pavilion was a site for a lot of wonderful things like music from Carmen and music of Delibes and all, you know, the people who were well known at the time and pretty current. And then there's lots of Wagner. There's like 538 performances of Wagner pieces in that period. 538. So yeah, so our orchestra's playing its first Wagner because it's
hard to avoid.
We had to fold him in.
Yeah.
We had to fold him in. But it's all based on pieces that were actually played there. In many cases, we know exactly where they were played. In some cases, we know that there were multiple performances of pieces, but they moved around the garden depending on what day it was. I see the garden, the fair.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. I would suspect that you would have found pieces that were played at the fair, but to actually dive down deep enough to find out where they were played, why they were played.
Yes, yes. One of the things we're doing is the Louisiana March, which was a commission by the fair organization itself by a well-known, at that time well-known composer, von Stucken, who was the man who started the Cincinnati Symphony. But he was well known. He conducted in Berlin, he conducted in New York and various places in the United States, but he was the founder of the Cincinnati Symphony. And he only lived a couple more years past the fair. But they commissioned him to write this grand Louisiana March, specifically to play at a dinner in honor of Theodore Roosevelt, which was held in the administration, it was now the administration buildings of Washington University, which that was part of the fair. They didn't build it for the fair, but they used it for the fair.
Sure. And
so this grand piece was played there at this special dinner in honor of Roosevelt, which we have the menu for. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Yeah, we've hit a couple of politically sensitive areas looking back, because it was a different time and different public mores, and we've had to be very sensitive and careful about that. And I think we've negotiated it very well. What else to say about it? It's been a fun project, and it's still going. It's been 8 months of intensive research, just so we get most of our historical facts right. The concert is going to be audio-visual, so we have a huge set of slides and action things going on above the orchestra's head to help people imagine their way through.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we've done things like this. Oh, we've collaborated with the Botanical Garden on something like this fairly recently. So we've used an AV presentation about that. So we're pretty adept at including images along with music. So it's like you're not like just looking at like a cartoon show or something. You can look at images if you want. You can look at the orchestra. You can hear everything, or you can just take it in, or you close your eyes so you don't get overstimulated. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Starting this project with David and I, talking to people about music, talking to people about amateur music, talking to people about community music in St. Louis, the question does come up. What is classical music relevant? How do you get people interested in classical music as it stands? Do we have to reinvent ourselves? Do we have to do, what is the answer? What is going to get the next generation interested in this music?
I think the question is, do you want the concert hall to be a museum, or do you want it to be a little bit more alive than that? So a lot of people come to a classical concert. You have your people who know everything, and you have your people who know what they like, and then you have people who think, I am an imposter, I don't belong here because I don't know enough to appreciate what I'm hearing. And our goal is to make that person comfortable. We give that person an informational background, so they can say, oh, I didn't know I liked Prokofiev. I couldn't even pronounce his name before, but I know these few things about him, and I've heard this and that. And that goes for our players too. The fact that we're doing our first Wagner ever. They've played Charles Ives. They've done kind of scary contemporary music. We did Philip Glass. We have our feet are solidly in the classical area, but we do a lot of Americana and St. Louis identified stuff. So we did a 2-year project all about Scott Joplin and all of his background and how he became who he was. And we brought in a very well-known authority on Scott Joplin to be our guide through the final presentation concert, which that was really fun and edifying to everybody who was present, everybody who was in the orchestra, everybody who got to talk to the guy. So we concentrate on like that. It's community-based. It's I go back to the word organic. His name is Ed Sullivan. No relation to the other one, but he wrote the book on Scott Joplin. So we've been conversing with Scott Joplin for a long time, and we insert him, and then we did a big program of women who wrote rags at contemporary with Scott Joplin. That was fascinating. Getting our hands on the music. In some cases, we traced the people. There were grandchildren of the authors who were here in St. Louis who came to the concert. We did a little interview with them. It's like, oh yeah, I remember her banging out those things on the piano in the parlor and stuff. It was lovely. It was really, really lovely. And so that's the community thing. This orchestra is St. Louis. We're an intergenerational, multi-ethnic group. Our membership is completely open. You'll see it. If you come to one of our concerts, you'll see it. The concert that's on the 10th, it's not next Sunday.
Which is also an interesting theme that I'd love to dive down as well. It's certainly not as encompassing as the World's Fair theme, which is just endlessly fascinating. But when I was looking into this concert on the 10th, I was talking to Michael Hutchinson, and he said it's pointing out every group in the orchestra. If I heard him correctly. That's right. So yeah, I'd love to.
So we're calling it Concerto for Orchestra. There's the famous Bartók Concerto for Orchestra, but Bartók wasn't the first one to write a concerto for orchestra, where every section of the orchestra it serves as a soloist. But that's the largest piece on the program and the last piece on the program. But we have, the first violins get everything all the time, so we don't need to feature the first violins as soloists. But we have our second violin section is playing. This goes back to various musical genres. Is playing the hymn by Vangelis. People know him from film music and stuff like that. Very, very beautiful, and they're soloists, and they're accompanied by the rest of the orchestra. We have a young man, Garen Agarwal, who's going to do J.C. Bach concerto, Bach Casa desu concerto. He'll stand up. He's one of our artist interns. We have some intern positions. We have artist fellows. He'll do that. Being an artist fellow or an intern carries with it the opportunity to play a concerto or solo with the orchestra, and that's we take our training of younger people into account. So that's more of that community stuff. We have two wonderful artist fellows that are cellists, Janae Bursey and Devin Allen, who are going to do the Vivaldi concerto for 2 cellos and orchestra. We have a phenomenal young man, Luke Oliver, who he'll be in our concert for the World's Fair, because the Saint-Saëns Havanaise was played at the World's Fair at the French Pavilion, and so Luke will be our soloist for that.
Oh, great!
And he's just a thing apart. So We call him our nuclear violin. He's got a very big tone and big sound. So there are no stars, there are no elites or anything like that, but we have, within our group, we have all sorts of wonderful resources artistically. And we don't have any stinkers. I will say that. We had one stinker once, and he came through, and he's gone. And that was really early on, and he just thought he came in thinking he was better than everybody, and he moved on to somewhere else where I think he was in somebody else's sore thumb in their orchestra. But because it's an open group.
Yeah, well,
it's
that's
an
a
open
community,
group.
right?
It is.
You
It
get
is.
everybody.
Well, we're blessed in that everybody, for the most part, just really gets along and really likes each other.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that the power of the group has special abilities to do that, to have its own gravity. That's
Nobody drove that. It just evolved. It evolved from a group of lovely people. It continues to grow and be a larger group of lovely people.
because that means it was meant to be.
I guess.
So.
Thank you very much. It's fascinating learning about. Yeah, I had no idea that the Confluence Chamber Orchestra. I hadn't even heard of it since until Joe mentioned to me a few months ago.
And that's one of the things that sparks what we're doing right here is all of these great groups in town, including the Confluence that are doing these great things, and nobody's talking about it, or not enough people.
And St. Louis Strings itself is like a little community center, though. I mean, you're a focal point for the musical community, for part of the musical community. So you understand that. You're a part of it.